Today's business news. Brian Quinn is with me. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Nadia.
You're going to be starting us off with the latest on the cryptocurrency market, specifically on the news from Elon Musk. He's been tweeting, and that's moved markets a little, particularly over the issue of Dogecoin. What can you tell us?
That's right. Of course, earlier this week, you might remember Tesla chief said Bitcoin's value tumbling when he tweeted that Tesla would no longer be accepting it as payment. Well, his latest tweet says that he's been working with Dogecoin's developers to improve its efficiency. Dogecoin, of course, the once jokey meme cryptocurrency that has turned rather serious after gaining around 12,000% in value over the past year, in part on public support from Musk. It's currently up 49% to trade around 57 cents. Well, Doge took a big hit earlier this week after Musk called it, quote, a hustle during an appearance on Saturday Night Live. Its latest rebound, though, also being helped by major crypto exchange Coinbase, which says it's going to start offering trading support in the coming weeks. Musk's tweets have led to growing concern over the ethics and legality of his apparent power to move crypto markets. Plenty of long-term backers are less than thrilled about it. Take a listen.
Behind all of this, there is a community of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, who actually is focused on building the future of finance and making sure that that will be acting in your best interest instead of just showing up on SNL or being able to have a lot of Twitter followers or whatever else.
Next, Facebook has lost a major legal battle in Ireland. The country's High Court rejecting the social network's attempt to block Ireland's Data Protection Commission from investigating and possibly suspending its transfer of user data from the EU to the US. Last year, the EU's top court struck down an agreement allowing for privileged access to European data by American companies, saying that it didn't adequately protect EU citizens from US government surveillance. Facebook has called those data transfers critical to its business model. The decision could have major implications for other U.S. tech giants that have their European headquarters in Ireland, including Google and Twitter. Well, to Madrid next, where Friday saw protesters gather outside the headquarters of CaixaBank. Demonstrators demanding an end to evictions and more help for struggling families. Despite the extension of a legal moratorium on evictions during the pandemic, foreclosure requests actually rose by more than 17% in 2020. The CaixaBank is now Spain's biggest lender after buying rival Bankia last year. Activists are calling on the company to return bailout funds given to Bankia in 2012 so that it can be put towards rent relief.
I'm lucky to have a house and a job, but I'm angry because the banking system in Spain is the most unjust in the world. Apart from the fact that housing is impossible.
Well, time now for a check on the day's trading action. Wall Street rebounding for the second day in a row after a big sell-off on Wednesday. A lackluster retail sales report failing to hold back major indexes as tech shares recover. The travel sector in particular seeing a big bounce from the latest loosening of mask-wearing guidelines in the U.S. European indexes closing strong as well after a rough week amid global fears that rising inflation could lead to a tightening of loose monetary policy. Jobless claims on the continent falling to a 14-month low as London finished today up 1.1%. CAC 40 here in Paris and the Frankfurt DAX up around 1.5% at the close. And finally, for business, while the pandemic has been a huge blight on many commercial sectors, there are some that have not only escaped unscathed, but have actually managed to toast their success. Here in France, with bars closed, neighborhood wine merchants have seen their cups runneth over, as Luke Schrager reports.
Franck Jaboulé has been a wine merchant for 30 years. He doesn't yet know if 2021 will be a good vintage just yet, but one thing he's sure of. With 10 to 15% above normal levels, it's been a bumper year for sales so far.
C'est assez inédit pour cette période, parce qu'habituellement, les mois de février et mars sont assez calmes. Et là, on travaille très bien actuellement.
With a curfew in effect and bars and restaurants closed, thirsty clients are turning elsewhere, and wine merchants are ready to pick up the extra custom.
J'ai 2-3 souvenirs dans l'année de m'être fait plaisir avec des bouteilles en se disant bon bah voilà, on va pas au restaurant, on va pas ci, on va se faire plaisir avec une très belle bouteille, peut-être qu'on n'avait pas l'habitude de faire avant.
More than that, new customers are also discovering the wealth of information and advice that specialists in the industry have to offer.
On boit pas forcément plus, mais on choisira des bonnes bouteilles.
Before the pandemic, The commercial balance with wine merchants between restaurants and private individuals was 60 to 40. That ratio's been turned on its head and helped limit losses.
On a 50% de l'activité grossiste-restaurant qui est en baisse au minimum. Et à côté de ça, effectivement, la partie caviste, elle, pour les particuliers, a plutôt bien fonctionné.
Weekend sales in particular are up, with merchants noticing new younger clients, ones they want to try and keep coming back.
Got time for some more of the day's top business headlines that we're following for you at this hour. French water and waste management giants Veolia and Suez have agreed to a long-contested mega-merger. Suez finally accepting the takeover at €20.50 per share, up from Veolia's original offer of €18. The new company says it plans to be a global leader in helping firms and cities reduce their environmental impact. Britain's Serious Fraud Office has launched an investigation into the business empire of Liberty Steel owner Sanjeev Gupta. The probe is targeting fraudulent trading and money laundering, including links to Greensill Capital, that's the supply chain finance firm that collapsed earlier this year. The UK's Financial Conduct Authority is already investigating Greensill's collapse as, quote, potentially criminal in nature. And Airbnb says it's expecting the travel rebound of the century as countries reopen for tourism. Booking value on the home sharing site has jumped 52% as clients spring for bigger and more isolated properties. Airbnb, though, still struggling. Its first quarter results showed a net loss of $1.8 billion. Finally, for business, a push for greater gender equality in French boardrooms. France's National Assembly this week approved a new draft law that requires companies with more than 1,000 employees to have women as 30% of its senior management by 2027 and 40% by 2030. Left-wing parties were somewhat critical of the bill for not going far enough while still lending it their support. The country's Minister for Gender Equality, Elizabeth Moreno, called quotas necessary to counter inequalities deeply ingrained in French mentalities, saying that in many respects, society here remains, quote, patriarchal, sexist, and discriminatory. The new law heads to the Senate next for final approval. And Nadia, I think there's a lot of people working in France who would not disagree with the minister's assessment of the situation here in France.
Yeah, noted. Thank you very much.